You ever just be passing by your hood and see a big mansion wishing it was you who lived there? You could be wondering, who could be the owner of this big mansion? How much money do they have? Do they have to be a millionaire to afford such a mansion? Well, normally you would quickly pass this thought and wish that one day you own one of these mansions. Here's Enza. As much as he sees the results of the mansion, the first thoughts were accurate, but the big question should be, what did the owner have to go through to get to the stage he is now, his journey, his state of mind? How many risks did he go through? How much patience did he possess? How many attempts did he try to finally get to the stage where he could own such a mansion? Enza would soon discover the owner of the house was Mr. Van, a businessman who owns a couple of businesses around town. He would soon ask, "Sir, how much did your mansion cost?" Rather, he was told he should be asking, how long did he put in the work to be able to afford the mansion? To Enza, that question sounds like asking someone how to climb a mountain to get to paradise. Mr. Van mentally believes in growth over time, while Enza mentally believes in results now. He is more interested in the complete mansion than the steps to build the mansion. Like most of us, anyone who is on the building phase isn't interesting to Enza. He sees them as normal people like him who are still dreaming, visioning, planning. He is interested in the destination more than the journey. Why is that? The journey looks harder, stressful, demanding, and long time to achieve. He sees Mr. Van as a complete success, the man on the finish line, but does he know about his journey, the route he chose to take, the dark paths he had to avoid, the obstacles that try to pull him down? No. But he wishes to accumulate the benefits, the fruits, without knowing when the seeds were planted and how long it took the tree to grow. Mr. Van invited him inside his mansion just to show him what he sees on the outside is just the cover. The real work is inside. Mr. Van showed him his study room, full of many planning charts, the debts he has to pay, the loans he has to cover, the businesses he has to maintain, invoices he gets every day. Stressful, right? This was behind the scenes of what people do not see, where the real work happens. Mr. Van started showing him he had to sleep on the farm with sheep and goats to raise money for his college tuition. Raised in a poultry farm, he had to learn how business works. He had to spend 5 years to wait for his credit scores to allow him within the business loans. Patiently working on his 10 years plan for the mansion, he had to completely shut out his friends that spent every weekend in the club. That is a sacrifice he chose to endure. While others were on a budget to go on dates, he was on a budget for his first pharmacy business. This story felt like Mr. Van was telling Enza the route to the finish line was full of floods and typhoons, which it really is like that. Mr. Van had to be around long enough to know how the tricks work, find his cheat code, and experience to survive the floods and typhoons. While on the other hand, you cannot deny that there are people who got to success as of it was an overnight thing. Either they were lucky, privileged, or had to be at the right place at the right time. Sometimes they know or are associated to people who are already in the fortunes. Like Carla, who was born into a family of riches. The floods and typhoons to success Mr. Van went through are not familiar to Carla. Her platform was already made for her. She doesn't know that you have to struggle to get what you want. Her parents provided for her academy. Her tuition, she didn't have to start at the bottom. She would inherit her parents' fortune and begin her investments. The only challenge she had was not knowing how to deal with chaos when things aren't provided. She knew money could solve everything, but if she would struggle, if everything had to be based on foundation, build, and momentum. Attending practices, naturally learning from failure, using her passion and pure talents, those things wouldn't need her parents' fortune, just her creating herself from bottom. Her parents had money to make it easier for her. However, she must go through the mental growth stability to stand for herself. Mr. Van Nieuwenza had no such platform. He has to start from the bottom, gain skills, compound his skills, build discipline, create habits, and have the persistence to keep going until the top. Enza only sees the maintenance of Mr. Van riches, and that was his initial interest. He would soon start to believe in adapting the long-term mindset in order to get his mansion. However, after he saw his peer Naki, who was driving her new car, he would get envious. That's his age mate. The peer pressure is another obstacle that drives one to recklessness. This was the typhoon Mr. Van mentioned earlier. However, Enza completely ignores it. His brain is thinking, if my age mate is doing it now, then I can also do it now. Naki is known as a gambler. Enza's short-term mindset takes over and sees this as the quickest route compared to Mr. Van's way. He would move back to his results mindset and takes a shortcut, begins selling illegal substances on the street. This brought an immediate success. He could see the money. He could see the results. It felt good, totally rebelling against the long route. He would rent out house, rent a few cars, just to look normal to his peer Naki. The pace was fast, but had no momentum. It was like a tree that was growing without letting the roots fully develop with enough water and amount of sunlight needed. This tree would eventually fall. He would rampage if his side hustle is low. At first, it seemed as if he was on the success track, but it was a short-term journey. As much as Naki would come hang around his rented house and onto his rented car, he was slowly falling apart. It would eventually shock Naki. Why is he in the same place if he really is in motion? Well, he didn't build enough gas, he went with the speed. The difference is Enza knew shortcuts equals quick reward equals fast profit. Mr. Van knew long route equals small wins equals a compounding profit. Enza sees his hustle as pass the test. Forget understand the subject. Mr. Van sees his businesses as understand the subjects and understand the game. Enza's route was easy and comfortable, while Mr. Van's route was rigid and hard. Enza, whenever he is selling, he would think, what can I get now? Mr. Van, throughout his business, what can I build for the future? Enza's house was falling apart. He didn't know how to deal with uncertainty. He was avoiding it the whole time. He didn't even know what hit him. He could go on. He was looking for something new, like an opportunist. Mr. Van kept his business and mansion maintained without any visible sign of how he was doing it. The power is in the roots. Mr. Van would later hire Enza. He told him to use this as a lesson. Enza saw himself as a failure. He would ask Naki, how is she gambling and maintaining her life? Well, Naki had a foundation. From the last video, we learned she was being funded for her cosmetic business. She had a relationship with Carla, which served as her template for her small business that she spent a year and a half building. Enza saw her fancy car and only saw her gambling. What he didn't know was her sleepless nights trying to start her business, and the car she bought was bought with the help of her father. We only see results, the finish line, the accumulations, the fancy cars and houses, and wish to have the benefits as well. But we have no idea how much work and how long someone had to dig every day to be where they are. We barely even want to go through what they had to, the difficulties, the challenges, sleepless nights. The amount of desire, faith, knowledge, and persistence that one had throughout years of building their fortunes. Some had it easy and had the platform set for them to get their fortunes. Not fair, right? But everyone's path to success was never the same. Thank you and subscribe.